I'm James Swinney with ModernWallStreet.com from the New York Stock Exchange, and today I happen to have the pleasure of interviewing a very well-known man in the world of international finance, the chairman and the CEO of Galileo Global Advisors, as well as the author of International Finance Regulation, The Quest for Financial Stability. That book in my hand right now, you'll see it again at the end of the video. He is right now standing to my right, none other than George Ugeux. George, thank you very much for taking time to interview today.
Thank you for having me.
Well, George, let's talk a little bit by starting with your book. And the premise of your new book, it recently states that regulatory developments around the world, they are not converging on the very same goal. Now, can you please elaborate on that statement?
There are two aspects to that. The first one, which is one of the biggest difficulties we are going to have in regulation, and the number of institutions in charge of regulation has become an unmanageable zoo. And there is no top world regulation because the IMF is not a regulator. The G20 has taken the Financial Stability Board, but they have no regulatory power. And of course they give guidelines and they explain what to do. But there is no global regulator. And in Europe, we have this additional problem that there was no regulator even for the European Union or the Eurozone. And now they are building it by using the European Central Bank. So we are still living with an institutional fragmented market. The second thing is that we have fundamental philosophical differences. The way we treat derivatives in the US is different than the way we treat derivatives in Europe. The way we consider the use of some capital for adequacy purpose is different. My best hope to get something that crystallizes this whole difference is the rules that are going to come from the Bank for International Settlement called the Basel III, which will deal with global standards for liquidity, for capital adequacy, and for leverage.
Okay, let's jump over to a very hot topic, the banks. Now, they've been at the origin of the most severe international crisis as of late, but is it possible for them to right now have a positive role? And could they in any way help reach this financial stability, especially on a day like today where a big institution like BNP Paribas, they're supposedly, reports are saying that they're on their way to paying a fine of $8.9 billion to the U.S. government for allowing money to go out to countries that are blacklisted by the United States. Is that in any way hopeful? It doesn't sound that much.
The question we're all having is, once all those new regulations are going to phase in, will that change the mentality? And I am, unfortunately, on the skeptical side because I believe that the mindset has not changed. Because the London whale of JP Morgan, the Libor crisis, the fixing of foreign exchange, the gold market, and now the Blackpool for Barclays, you have an accumulation of wrongdoing where banks hope, like BNP Paribas was, that they will not be caught and punished. Now, the difficulty is that governments have decided to punish people with fines. Now that's the wrong approach for one reason. It decreases the strength of the institution because, it's $9 billion out of the equity of BNP Paribas out of the window. That weakens the bank. But the second thing is I believe that you will only get the mindset change if personal responsibility could be sanctioned. Because if somebody knows that if he's doing something he can go to jail, he might think twice. The fact that he might get a $5 billion jail has not changed the mentality.
Now, in your conclusion, you talk about 14 different problems that need to be resolved before we achieve some form of global stability. And one of them you happen to bring up is Asia's economy. Now, what exactly makes Asia's economy stand out to you? What makes it very important? What makes it a focus feature for you?
First, we have to understand that when I was going to Asia after the Lehman crisis, and I was talking about the global crisis, they were telling me, you're wrong. This is a transatlantic crisis. So Asia never considered that they were on the hook, and rightly so, because they didn't do any of those things. But now, the financial institutions in Asia will need also to apply Basel III. So they are now gradually looking at changes that need to happen. But at the same time, when you see the systemic world, the biggest danger at the moment is probably a serious crisis in the field of shadow banking in China, which is now $7.5 trillion, And if China had to use its muscle to try to rescue those 7.5 trillion, it would have to sell US treasuries and European bonds, and that would create an increase of interest rates in those financings, and then we would have a global crisis. But this one would really be global because it would affect Asia, Europe, and the US.
George, thank you very much for your time. And to the viewers watching, his book is available right now online at the URL below. It should pop up right now. And George, again, thank you very much for your time. For ModernWallStreet.com, I'm James Swinner.